Zimbabwe, Lesotho, wherever. Okay. You guys happy? All right, let's go. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, especially to our viewers in Africa and the rest of the developing world. Thank you for joining us in this our first seminar series for the Economics for Development 2 class. Today we're going to be discussing whether or not polluters should be afforded the right to pay for the right to pollute. Leading our arguments are two teams on this divisive issue. Before we begin, and without much further ado, I want to say a hearty good morning for everybody. Guys, I'm sure we can do better than that. Let's go. Good day, welcome. We're as excited as everybody else out there in cyberspace to be leading this discussion for dare I say it, a concept which is typically left out of the world affairs. Africans do have a voice, and more important than having a voice, we are affected by this. So, without much further ado, please. Slides 4, the argument.
Good morning all. I would like to greet the House and our viewers at home, and I'd like to welcome everyone again to our class of Economics and Development, where today we will be discussing the topic of whether or not polluters should be allowed to pay or not. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to refer to a quote found on research, and it reads, "The environment will continue to deteriorate until pollution practices are abandoned." Now, I'd like to leave you guys with a few questions just to think about before I carry on. Do you think that this is attainable? Is abandoning pollution practices completely, that is? We believe that what B.F. Skinner is saying is idealistic, but it's not realistic. It sets very unrealistic regulations for us, because we don't believe that we can do without pollution completely without looking into the question of development. Right. Ecologists and environmentalists often take overpopulation and the exploitation of natural resources as a point of departure in their prognosis for environmental issues. There's no denying that overpopulation and indeed the massive industrial outputs of both developed and developing nations do process irrevocably toxic impacts on climate. But what is often omitted in their diagnosis is that the environmental hazards inherent to the dynamics of capitalism. Before I move any further, I would like to put to the House that businesses exist for the sole purpose of profit maximization. There is a demand that is to be met by these industries, and fortunately the fathers of capitalism figured out a way of monetizing this demand. As the demand grows, so does the supply, and inconveniently the process of production to consumption has equaled to hundreds of millions of tons in pollution. We believe that the motion should carry that polluters should be allowed to pay for polluting, simply based on the analysis that if they pay until they feel a pinch where it hurts the most, they will be more likely to opt for greener solutions and more eco-friendly technologies in production and waste management. My partner and I have identified this phenomena of paying for pollution, that it already exists and is quickly becoming a subject of major concern in global issues. Simply put, corporations are already paying for pollution, but we believe that the rate of pollution is still high because we believe that they can still afford to pay. Their margin and bottom line isn't threatened in any way, and this, my friends, is the key. They pollute because they can still afford to. If I can just put it to you that we are not pro-pollution, but we are pro the motion of making polluters pay as a tool of regulating pollution worldwide. Seeing as though that we live in such interesting times where capitalism reigns supreme, we have identified the most effective way of curbing pollution. Because realistically, it is impossible to eradicate pollution because we have the consumer. So we chose to look at it from the perspective of using a capitalistic measure to regulate it through allowing the right to pay for pollution, but by the use of putting steep increases on taxes and tariffs is the one way to pay for pollution. If we put our economic man cap on, we could hypothesize that paying for pollution would raise production costs. If steep taxes for pollution threaten the company's bottom line, then surely they are more likely to be steered towards greener technologies, which will ultimately lead to sustainable development. Right. And by closing, I will put to the House that businesses are not institutions of morality. We believe that the motion should carry that polluters should pay for pollution, just as a tool of regulating and measuring pollution.
So thank you for that introductory and opening arguments. Now the side that's going to be against the motion with their opening arguments. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to greet the House and to our fellow parties. We are against the notion of paying for the right to pollute. Just to get this right, we are not against the implementation of tax, but however the intention behind it, of the whole concept of encouraging such a tax as a way of compensating for pollution is what we stand in contradiction of. We stand on the ground of morality and for defending those species and sectors who cannot do it on their own, such as the environment, vulnerable groups, and the endangered ecosystems. By allowing such a tax, it comes across as though the government supports pollutant industries and is putting a price tag on how much they can damage our environment. We have been stuck in a system of believing that the economic structure and the measures associated with it are the only way forward, but maybe in daring to look at the truth, wouldn't it be fair to see that if we continue to head down the economic route, disregarding all factors, that it will definitely see the end of us as a species? Everyone has the right to health, stipulated in the Constitution. Companies that pollute, infringe on these rights as dangerous emissions are released, causing people to get sick, which no amount of tax can begin to pay for with the millions of lives affected. Sustainable development is a necessity in the current global state, especially since we are undergoing severe climate change and global warming that affects the most vulnerable groups, which are mostly people who are poor and don't have the capacity or resources in assisting in coping with such extreme weather events. Thank you. My colleague will be continuing on this point.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning to our viewers at home. I'll be continuing from Doors' statements on why we're against polluters should pay a motion. We understand that these extreme industries should be held accountable, but we strongly believe that there are other ways to do this apart from imposing taxes to pollute. Instead, the states may restrict pollutant emissions or limit access to open access resources, or the companies can commit themselves and drive more eco-friendly industries through using more resources which are less harmful to the people and the environment. Driving their money there into making these improvements will be costly, but save the money later for the taxes. Many environmental problems may be addressed appropriately by tradable permit systems or other market-based policy instruments. How can putting a price on environmental damage, food security, and the health of millions of people be equivalent to the level of the actual damage experienced? That's the question you guys would like to ask yourselves. Further, pollution is what we consider a negative externality, meaning that the total social cost of production exceeds the private cost. Core 2007 argues that the problem is to avoid the more serious harm. This is not clear unless we know the true value of what is obtained as well as the value of what is sacrificed to get it. Lastly, we must ask ourselves who these carbon taxes are catered for and who they exclude, because these taxes curtail economic activity in the poor developing world, because they cannot afford the small increase in energy cost, but the developed world simply have the money and can pay for it. Therefore, is it not important to consider other possible alternatives that do not reward pollution, considering all that is at stake? Thank you very much.
Sorry, thank you guys for keeping in time the Zukozo and Tenentle. And that was the opening arguments. Quite a twist. We thought there was going to be one speaker for the opening arguments, but we thank them nonetheless for keeping in time. For our opposing argument, or closing argument for the side that's for the motion, we have Tandanani wrapping up on the points earlier reached in the Lentlema. Thank you. Please, Tandanani.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So, right, pollution should companies be afforded the right to pay for pollution? Of course they should. It makes sense. Let me tell you why. There's such a thing as the polluter pays principle. In environmental law, the polluter pays principle is enacted to make the party responsible for producing pollution accountable for paying for the damages done to the natural environment. It has been regarded as a regional custom because of the strong support it has received in most OECD countries and the European community. So there are certain countries which in their formulation of environmental law have adopted the polluter pays principle. These countries include Australia, France, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United States. So, for example, in Australia, the state of New South Wales included the polluter pays principle with other principles of ecologically sustainable development in the objectives of the Environment Protection Authority. In France, yet again, we see the adoption of this principle, where the Charter for the Environment contains a formulation of the polluter pays principle. If one looks at Article 4 in France's Charter for the Environment, it reads as follows: everyone shall be required in the conditions provided for by law to contribute to the making good of any damage he or she may have caused the environment. So, in how environmental law is being formulated, there is a growing trend of where the polluter pays principle is being adopted. And it's quite realistic because, as my team member had stated before, it's not really realistic for us to think that we can eradicate pollution totally. So adopting the polluter pays principle in formulating environmental law is an effective method. Take Sweden, for example. The polluter pays principle, which is also known as the extended producer responsibility, has been adopted there. It's a concept which was first described by Thomas Lindqvist for the Swedish government in 1990. And what this does, the EPR, as it is known, it seeks to shift the responsibility of dealing with waste solely from governments solely, and it also places responsibility on the generators of the pollution itself, which would be companies, industry, you can name it. Switzerland, yet again. The waste management in Switzerland is based on the polluter pays principle. For example, bin bags for municipal solid waste are taxed with paper bag fees. In the United States, the polluter pays principle is adopted in environmental laws, in most of them, basically. In the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, and so many more. So speaking of carbon taxes, the opposing side had spoken about carbon taxes, and what she had said was the intention behind a carbon tax. Well, the intention behind a carbon tax also serves as a punitive measure to the polluter, because if you have to pay to pollute, then that actually motivates you not to pollute. So when companies actually have to pay for their pollution, that is a great and very effective incentive for them not to pollute. As she had stated, companies exist, well, yes, they want to produce goods and services for consumers, but they do that because they want to be profitable. So if you hit them where it hurts most, in the pocket, if you start messing around with their profit margins, then something is going to change, something has got to give. So what is a carbon tax? A carbon tax is a fee for making users of fossil fuels pay for climate damage their fuel use imposes by releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and for motivating switches to clean energy. There are several countries which have enacted carbon taxes. These include the countries of the United Kingdom, Ireland, Australia, Chile, Sweden. And these carbon taxes have actually been effective. I mean, look, we live in a very capitalistic society. So in our way, okay, let me put it like this, to address or to curb pollution, we sort of have to use capitalistic means because the world is dominated by capitalism, and this is effective. Listen to this. In the United Kingdom, 2016 carbon emissions from UK sources were down 7% from 2015 and 37% from 1990. So in the UK, from 1990 till about 2016, carbon emissions have gone down by 37%. Even if I have to say so myself, I think that is quite impressive, and that actually shows how carbon taxing is effective in curbing pollution. Furthermore, in the UK, carbon emissions basically have fallen steadily since 1990. In the United States, similarly as in the UK, a bulk of the reduction or the improvement or the efficiency as far as pollution is concerned has come in the electricity producing sector. So yes, Ireland as well enacted a carbon tax in 2010 under a coalition government. Time. Yes.
Wrap up, please.
Yes, okay. So basically a carbon tax and adoption of the polluter pays principle is a great incentive for companies not to pollute. Morality, if you bring in morality, she spoke about morality, what is right or wrong. If you say that they should not pay for their pollution because it's wrong, then what should they do for their pollution? Because they are going to pollute. Like we said, it's unrealistic to think we can just wipe out pollution. If we say companies should not pollute at all, then we are saying they should cease to exist. If we say they should cease to exist, we are saying we can do without the services and goods that they provide. If we say we can do without those companies and what they bring, goods, services, employment, how realistic is that? And in closing, the price on pollution, as they had mentioned, is not equivalent to the damage. Well, then the question is, what's the perfect alternative? Because what we believe is that if companies are made to pay for their pollution, that will force them to invest in greener technology, which will then lead to sustainable development. We all want a clean environment. We want to breathe clean air. We want land that is not filled with non-biodegradable goods. So we actually agree with you. Sustainable development is necessary, but through what? I'll tell you through what. Through making companies or well allowing them to pay for their pollution. It makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Tananani, for that impassioned plea to pollute our environment. To follow, we're going to have Mientle, who's going to do the closing arguments for the arguments against affording polluters the right to pay for their pollution. Thank you. Mientle.
I'm going to start off by saying, is the capitalist approach the only way we can go about doing this? Can't we take another approach? As opposed to companies paying certain tax towards polluting, they should rather invest in greenhouse technologies and certain resources and materials that will decrease emissions and be more eco-friendly. We do acknowledge that carbon trading has been effective and has decreased pollution. But does that not mean that climate change? But that does not mean that climate change has come to an end due to these policies. The emission of greenhouse gases, which are the main polluters of industries, this will cause temperature rise. These greenhouse gases include and are increasing due to the burning of fossil fuels such as gases, coal, and oils, and changes in land and deforestation. Manufacturing, along with other industrial processes, is one of the primary industry sectors being targeted for green technology use. The government should instill policies making and asserting that these industries are using green technology. By transforming from traditional manufacturing to lean green converting machines, this will greatly benefit the planet at large. This, in turn, will save industries money that they pay towards tax. So, instead of companies paying towards tax, why don't they just make a once-off investment in greenhouse technologies? More than that, companies need to communicate on how they are dealing positively with climate change to customers who increasingly demand environmentally responsible practices. The consumer clause has expanded to the point where upgrade price pressures are being placed on resources, including construction and industrial materials, energy and water. The cost of conservation and green technology are more easily justified in this financial climate. The author will carry on with our arguments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Just to extend on what Amanda said, as he did mention that businesses are not moral institutions, but they're there to make profits. Okay, we understand this, but then it's stipulated in some constitution that there is a corporate social responsibility that is placed on corporations, that they must take responsibilities for the damage they inflict, specifically on people and the environment. So as opposed to paying this tax, we want other methods such as investing in green technology. Industries cannot hide behind the fact that they are paying large amounts towards the pollution, as this disregards their environment, such as your ecosystem, biodiversity, people's health, and the environment that jeopardizes and increases poverty. Environmentally, there are some pollutions such as radioactive waste, which are so dangerous to life that they have to be kept out of circulation altogether. And some chemical wonders such as plastics and pesticides, which are so poisonous to much plant and animal life as they are inorganic substances and take forever to break down. And we can't forget the extreme climates, the extreme weather events, which manifest themselves in more intense hurricanes, cyclones, and typhoons, such as heavier rain and snowfall more frequent, and intense heat waves and longer droughts. Oh, so just to continue, even though both developed and developing countries pollute, however, the poor developing countries suffer the most. Plus, as history has taught us, that the developed countries succeeded due to colonization and extraction of the resources of other countries. They further have detrimental effects on the developing countries as they locate their multi-corporations in poor countries, all in the name of development. So we have to ask ourselves that really, like, who is this development for really? If poor countries and developing countries are the ones that are worst off after this pollution is actually taking place. Thus, in critically analyzing the statements, we forget to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koza, for closing up in the way you did, and thanks to everybody for keeping in time. Given the contentiousness of this debate, we usually expect the speakers to go over time, but I want to thank you all for actually keeping so closely in time. That said, we're going to open up the debate now to questions from the class. If we were going to do this online, please, we do take your comments as well. So if you have questions for the class, we will get to it as soon as we post the videos and are able to, and one of our panelists will respond. So the viewers out there, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to put up your comments, to put up your questions. That said, the class, any questions? Yes, Nzukulu. Is it to decide for or against the motion?
For the motion.
Please.
My first question.
Could you speak up, please, so that we can just get the audio?
My first question is that I can say the site is putting a large premium on profit maximization, which is an offshoot of the result of capitalism. I'm just wondering, in terms of sustainable development, our future generations, third generation, fourth generation, what do you think of our grandchildren? Do you think for the sake of making profits now, and then we will close our eyes, not think of those who are going to suffer the consequences of environmental degradation? That's the first question. The second question is about the morality issue. Don't you think, I want to support, I want to support the opposing side. Right?
So is there a comment or is there a question?
It's a question.
Okay.
This one is the comment. That I think if we allow markets to predominate, and companies are given rights to buy chemicals to pollute, that removes their moral obligation to freely address the problem of environmental protection.
Anybody else? We'll take questions in rushes of three, if that's okay with the commission of the panel. Any other questions you have from the class?
Okay, my question is addressed to the group that was against the motion.
Yes.
It appears as if you built your argument on morality and green technology. And in as much as that is good, but we're talking about implementation and application. Let's look at things like oil, which is very necessary. And we know that oil is mainly shipped, and then there's spillages that take place in the sea that affects fish and then a lot of other things. So how do you suggest we deal with such resources that cannot be easily replaced? How do you suggest we do that? That's
Thank you. Any other questions for this round before we close this round of questions? Yes, sir, Gina?
I have a question for this side. You said that if they pay, they'll feel the pinch of their polluting, and then as a result, they're going to reduce their pollution. But don't you think that the taxing industry or the carbon trading schemes, such things, they actually become industries in themselves, that the people receiving the taxes actually want to make more profit out of that trading scheme or whatever is the tax, what is it? The taxing. And also we also have like people coming up with inventions that use renewable resources, like those cars that use paraffin or something. Then you find that big businesses that don't invest in such projects because they would rather pay the tax than invest in projects like that. What do you have to say about that?
Just a note on procedure. You're welcome. The side that is against the motion, if you're welcome to add, as also any of those comments, or to expand upon the questions. But before we do get to answering the questions, both sides mentioned a lot of arguments and statistics. They mentioned, and I quote, in some constitution it says. Is there anything, Dina, you would like to check or have the panelists verify before we proceed?
Unfortunately, I couldn't get hold of the constitution. But when I look at the OECD, which is those countries whereby Australia, France, they did manage to reduce their gas emissions from 2000 up to 2010. These are the statistics that I have. So it's US, UK, France. I'm not sure whether you want to.
Okay. No. So you think you're happy with the statistics which Tananani has cited?
Yes.
Thank you. That's it. Please, the side that's for the motion, if you could start addressing the questions. Please. Sorry, you may sit down if you like. If it's up to you.
I'd like to thank the House for the questions they've posed to our team. And I'd like to reply to you, sir. Yeah. In the name of sustainable development, are we so selfless as human beings as to compromise attaining our very own present need, quality of life, and the potential to develop as an investment that will benefit those that live in our absentia in future? It is a tall order to compress our rate of development over this conviction that we have over future generations. Do you believe that the protagonists of the Industrial Revolution and capitalism had future generations, which is us, in mind when they were constructing this very reality that we live with today? I highly doubt it. If that is the case, then why are we having this debate at this very moment? Why is this a global issue today? Why is it the center? Why is it at the crux and that's at the center of all global crisis agendas? The absolute consideration of future generations is idealistic, yet it sets unrealistic expectations. Thank you.
Please, Hannah. Oh, sorry, please, answer closer.
Can you just repeat the last statement for me?
The absolute consideration of future generations is idealistic, yet it sets unrealistic expectations.
Can you elaborate on these unrealistic expectations?
Okay. So we have the general population. The general population essentially represents the demand. And we've got these manufacturers which are to meet the supply. How are we not to pollute when we've got when industries have to meet the demand? We believe that it's impossible. But through incentivizing and commercializing carbon tax, we believe that paying for pollution can actually create a market for it. The more carbon tax pinches their bottom line, the more it threatens their bottom line. It's going to encourage them not to pollute, because now it threatens the very basis of why they started a company, which is to maximize profits.
Okay, we understand all these points, but then...
Sorry, may I just, before we go on, Fananandi did have a response to Mzimkulu's question. So if you get that, please, afterwards, if you just respond to Mzimkulu's comments, please.
Yes. On the point that she had made about us thinking about future generations, if we really want to think about future generations while we implement development now, then to what extent must we compromise development for us now as an investment for generations in the future? What are the extremes of us developing so sustainably or foregoing development now as a way of investing in the future? It's great to think about future generations, and I agree with you. It would be great for us to develop sustainably, and our way and our suggestion towards sustainable development is that if you make polluters pay for their pollution, it will steer them in the direction of adopting greener technology, which will result in sustainable development. And when we develop sustainably, then future generations will have a good future as well. But for us right now to think that we should compromise the potential of our development, realistically speaking, for the future generations who will live in our absence, not that I'm disregarding them, but we won't be alive when they are alive. So we also want to maximize the potential to have a good life right now. It's realistic. We want to live good lives. We want to drive fancy cars. We want to have a good time while we're alive. And if you start saying that the gist of our living now should focus on what's going to happen in the future, then what must we do? Right?
Thank you. We have a challenge here. What must we do? And we're going to leave it to the class that is against the motion, actually, to both elaborate on Mzimkulu's comments, which have made a moralistic argument, and to rebut what Tananani had just said, please.
I'd just like to argue...
But just you're not off the hook for the questions which Tatenda had said, both of you guys. Okay. Please?
I'd just like to argue on the side that are we so selfish that we're living in the now, that we don't consider what we're doing in the now for our future children and our future generations to come? Are we here just to complete and deplete all that is here for now? Are we so selfish that we want to deplete everything and not leave some for the ones to come after?
Well, the answer...
please, Tatenda's question. Okay, we'll get to that question which Tokoza had said. If you could just answer Tatenda's question, please.
Satenda asked, how do we deal with resources such as oil, which we can't easily replace? Well, that's a very difficult question because...
Can you please elaborate on your question? I do not understand it.
I'm saying there are resources, isn't you saying we should adopt greener technology to reduce pollution? And I'm saying there are resources that lead to pollution, and those resources cannot be easily replaced. Let's look at the use of oil. Oil is shipped, and when it's shipped through the sea, there are spillages that take place, and then that destroy fish and a lot of things that survive in the sea. And for that damage now, how then do we address damages like that? If your argument is saying we only have to focus on green technology and morality, but damage that is being caused, how is that addressed when there are resources that cannot be replaced? Do you?
I feel like factors such as oil spillages, when they happen, it's something that is not controllable. Unlike pollution in factories can be controllable. So I think...
Not even just oil, but even chemicals in industrial sites.
I think that's... think that's why we're more for the green technology, for factors such as that, such as oil spillages, such as the ones we've mentioned. That's why we're pushing more for the green technology, so we can run away from
Things
such
like oil
occurrences like that,
spillages.
which the tax actually promotes. We don't want that. That's why we are opting for another option. Once we have another alternative such as green technology that doesn't impose damages and doesn't infringe on people's rights.
Because factors such as oil spillages are out of our control. I don't think you're trying to say.
If I may,
Yes.
I think what Satinder is trying to say, there's certain things which are necessary for, regardless of capitalist production, but for 21st century living, which are necessities. And by their nature, they are damaging. Am I correct, Satinder? Yeah. If we're not allowed to use these, either these technologies or these products, what suggestion are you putting forward? So either control, like whether or not they happen, because by their very nature, they're going to be polluting. What happens in this situation? I think this is the, am I correct in saying something? What alternative do you put forward in this situation?
That's a very good question, and unfortunately, we don't have the answer to that. So I will put that up. That's a very good question, though.
Well, while we contemplate the answer to that question, there's another very good question which Gina had put forward to the group that's for the motion. And Tananani would like to address it. Please, Tananani.
Before I jump into that shortly, she said, are we so selfish as to just live in the now and not think about the future? Well then, are we so selfless to really just think about the future and forget about the now? Can we really forget about the now when we are living right now? We can't. We want to have good lives, and unfortunately, it's at the cost of the environment, which is a finite resource, unfortunately. So that's my response to that. Are we so selfish? Well, are we so selfless then? And, well, Gina mentioned the tax trading scheme and that the commercialization thereof just makes, I don't know, it motivates rather profit. It all becomes about profit, right? And then you went on to say that renewable energy is not being invested in. Okay, well, until renewable energy is as efficient as the energy we are using now, there is no incentive to invest in it, or it's not that great, if I can put it that way. If we have got methods which produce so much pollution, yet are so effective and efficient in getting us what we want and what we need, what is there to make us change direction and invest in renewable technology when the renewable technology seemingly does not necessarily fulfill our needs and wants or our preferences to the extent that we would prefer? And tax trading, as you put it, the tax trading scheme, it's not just there, it's not just an issue of profitability. It's there to motivate companies, because companies, as we said, they want to make a profit. So when you enforce laws that pinch the profit of those companies, then you encourage them to adopt greener technology. So we like the idea that they're presenting. They're pushing for greener technology. We agree with them. We are pushing for greener technology. But how? Like I said, make them pay for their pollution so that they adopt greener technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just speak on the side of you mentioned that you're polluting, and unfortunately it's going to be at the cost of the environment. I'm asking for how long? For how long will the environment be able to support us? As we can see, the environment is fighting back through climate change and global warming.
If I may, okay. Before we get on to the big contentious, Gina, are you happy with that answer? Yeah. What would you like to expand on? I see you're looking very confused there, like, or perhaps like
His answer
disturbed.
is really good, and
Yeah.
that's what they all say. but no one has actually ever tried investing in green technology. I was watching on the news the other day, this guy who invented a solar car, and this just one individual. He used all the money that he has and is surviving from paycheck to paycheck, and he was able to build this solar car. And none of these companies, BMW, all these, are interested in actually making that invention cheaper because if they can invest in it, they can actually produce it and they can afford to make it cheaper for everyone and put it on the market, but they just won't do that.
They won't do it. Okay, that car, which sounds great, does it ground like an AMG Sport?
Yes.
It does.
It looks like a normal car.
Does it ground like an AMG Sport, a Mercedes? Is it, I mean, you know, when I'm, as a young person with ambitions to live a good life, I don't really aspire to drive a solar car. That's the reality. It's not that we're advocating for it, but it's the reality. I want an AMG Sport.
If I may, just a quick question here, which I think we have to ask is, presuming that we can speak on behalf of the consumer, all consumers, I think is a bit ambitious, if I may. And secondly, when we'd asked on behalf of future generations, and maybe for the side that's for this, we see environmental effects happening now within our lifetime. It's not only future generations who are being affected. How would you address that? While the argument is quite eloquent, we should worry about the now. Worrying about pollution is worrying about the now. And if I could just, and if while we ask, I put that to the class, if I could just return very quickly to the morality argument, which Tukozo ended on. Please.
Sorry to disturb you. I just wanted to add on the certain figures, because you say we're living now, but even now we are experiencing such occurrences, just like to say some stats. Globally, up to 30% of species will be in increasing risk of extinction in the now. There will be changing rainfall patterns, and melting glaciers will jeopardize water supplies to hundreds of millions of people. This is in the now. In 2009, there were 551 natural disasters, and 325 of these were climate-related. Natural disasters killed up to 10,551 people of these. 8,700 of these people died as a result of climate-related disasters. So if you're saying that we are just living in the now, but the now is fighting back now, so how do we go about this?
Can I just add a case of Somalia?
I don't know, please, by all means.
Okay.
For our Somalian viewers, please feel free to bring comments in this part of the show. Please.
In 2009, Somalia was terrorized by a cyclone due to climate change, obviously caused by, one of the major causes of climate change is pollution, as you guys may know. This stemmed from factors such as pollution, which was the most contributor to this phenomenon. When the cyclone overtook, Somalian agriculture and the fishing industry was put in jeopardy, as these sectors were deemed useless after this tragedy. People could no longer fish or nor sell their crops to feed their poverty-stricken households. Therefore, we can say that pollution later leads to endangering food security.
I think that the side actually took a liberty to put in some of their arguments rather than rebut the question. That's it. Any other questions for the panelists? Please, Jeremiah. We'll take another 3 questions. Sizwe, a guest, and then Lina, our fact checker. But first, can we afford priority to our fact checker, please? Yeah.
Thank you once again. Ireland forms part of OECD, of which those countries are the countries who have been able to reduce their gas emissions. Particularly, Ireland did it from 11% to 6%. But now, in 2015, Ireland is struggling to reduce gas emissions. They've gone up to about 29%. They also need to reduce as well. So from 6% up, it shoots up straight to almost 30%. So are you really saying that the development that we are speaking about, that we really need, is about now? Do we necessarily need to go through these gas emissions which will affect our future? Because we are very much focused on the capitalistic, as you put it, on the capitalistic system that we are moving with. Or are we really considering what's going to happen to the future generations? Because we cannot say it's about only today. So I'm still really not convinced about what's going to happen in future, because now, even now, we are being struck by this climate change as we speak.
Sorry, please, Jeremiah.
Thank you. The first part, we are talking of, we are living now, the question of now and tomorrow. It's covered in sustainable development. When we are talking of sustainable development, it means we have to develop now without compromising the opportunities for tomorrow. So we are living now while thinking about tomorrow. That's all about sustainable development. Meaning if we are adopting sustainable development strategies, then we are addressing challenges now without compromising the opportunities for the next generation. My question now is on the right to pollute. Yes, they pay, but to what extent does those payments cover? If we consider, do we consider even the social cost of pollution? An industry develops in a residential area, then they release the waste into the stream that runs across this residential area. This right to pay, what does it cover? People in this area will be breathing bad air. Are we saying the residents have the right to claim damages for breathing the bad air? Or is it just making this one pay or clean the stream only? There will be noise pollution. People will be disturbed in their homes. You cannot watch a TV with big machines running. You have to wait until they cease, then you can listen to the voice from the radio in your house. That's noise pollution. Does it cover the cost of noise and even air pollution? Can people claim such damages?
Sorry, before we have to get the comments from the class, please. Please, Caesar, a question. Is it for the side that's for or against the motion?
Okay, it's for the motion. I love how you guys tend to ignore the future, what generation and focus on the now. But what I would love to ask you is, you tend to argue that businesses are for profiting maximization, is it? So what I'm asking is, with that, say we allow them to pay, and then what comes with taxes, your price starts to rise because they want to accommodate their profit. So what I'm asking is, did you then consider us as customers? Are we also playing a role in the company, your industries polluting the land or the air? If then, is it necessary or is it right for us as customers to also be blamed for what they do on their own? Because now you have companies politicizing and then you say we must tax them. And then if you tax them, they're going to raise their prices just to make sure that they privatize their profit. But at the expense of who? Us as customers. So what are you saying about us as customers in that sense?
If I may, Caesar, given all the comments that have been coming up for the side that's for the motion, right? Actually, that question can be just as easily put to the side that's against the motion, right? So what happens? It's a moral argument. So what happens to us? Should we bear the costs? Right? And I've actually put it to the start that's against the motion, right? If you could handle that question. And that'll be our last round of questions, right? If I may, if you guys want to start now, or you would like.
Can I just add on what Tina was saying? Because she was the first person that asked the question.
Okay.
Okay. Tina spoke something about development. I actually agree with you, and we had a few statements here for the team, but they didn't reach us with we had Doors and I have here. And constantly discussing these statements, we forget to ask ourselves that who exactly is this development for? Because the opposing team can argue that the tax that they pay can go towards development of the people. We can ask ourselves who exactly is this development for? Countries which are resourceful in minerals such as Somalia are still living in poverty, which are all with all these massive corporations in their country. With all of these industries who release dangerous gases, it does not only add to their poverty due to lack of employment, but also contributes towards health issues as the population inhales these hazardous emissions, making them less likely to become employable due to unprecedented health issues associated with pollution. Furthermore, developed countries cannot hide behind their quest to develop because there is evidence of global warming due to factors such as pollution. Therefore, if we support the notion of compensating pollution through tax, we're not only forgetting people's rights, such as health, we're also disregarding the environment and the ecosystems that cohabitats there, which many individuals and companies are reliant on. That's just adding on to those statements.
Sorry, and please, yes, cease with comments. Okay.
Or you want me to?
Yeah.
I'm
May I summarize?
Okay.
Sorry. Costs will be transferred from the producers onto the consumers. Where's the morality? Am I correctly summarizing with such? Right? Yeah.
I feel like that's why companies should tell consumers exactly what they're doing and the process of it. So the consumer has the right to either choose to buy it or not to buy it. Can either choose to support such pollution or not support pollution. So I think that's where we play our part. Us having full information, which is an assumption of economics, that we have full information. By us having full information, we're able to make decisions, either supporting or not supporting the way things will be chosen.
But
Sorry.
yeah. Okay, I'm asking like you're saying you can either choose to support or not. But say right now in your home you have more than 10 things that use electricity. Say your TV for starting, and then you choose not to support. Are you gonna go back and light your fire outside, or what are you gonna do? You are gonna support these companies because now you already have the resources which use what they produce. So what I'm asking is, should it be you then who suffers at their expense if you say they must pay profit, they must pay taxes to have a right to privatize?
I think that's up to the individual. If you choose to support it, that's okay. If you choose not to have the TV, that's up to you.
And until then, we're still looking for green technology to push that. So for now, I unfortunately have to support them because there's no other way to go about it. But until there's new inventions and there's new ways yes, we have to support them.
Just in the interest of time, we can just get the side that's for the motion to respond to Tina and Jeremiah's comments. Please, anybody want to take it? Yeah. Please, if you could just get up, because we cannot see you with the way things are, with the way the camera is set up at the moment.
I'd like to thank the House for availing this opportunity to me to answer your question. Right, I'd like to speak to the question of industries removing the moral responsibility towards pollution. I just have one question for the class, and maybe someone can actually give me an answer. When have industries ever been institutions of morality? My team member and I stand firm in the belief that we need to counteract this issue, which has been often masked as an environmental issue, when in fact we believe that it's not. It's an economic issue. So we believe that this is why we opted for a capitalistic solution for an issue. The issue of pollution, in its true essence, is an economic issue because at the end of the day, the population has wants and needs, and demand has to be met by these industries. We want to make clear that we are not putting a price on the natural environment. We believe that realistically, carbon taxes are a means of regulating pollution through incentivization. Right. Our opposition here raised the question that can we not take another approach? I don't know if maybe you guys can come up with a solution, because right now what we're seeing is that we somehow all of these little issues have accumulated to this one big issue. We call it an environmental issue, but at the core is capitalism. Capitalism is the problem, and supply needs to meet demand. We've got needs and wants, and these industries need to meet these demands. So what can we do? What other option do we have rather than to counteract this issue that is so seen to be environmental? Do we not need to use capitalistic methods to remedy this issue? Government, our opposition also spoke on how the government should make policies. I'm tired, honestly, I'm tired of this conversation around policy making, because at the end of the day, it all boils down to implementation. If policies were so effective, I don't believe that we would be standing here today having this debate. How much longer will environmentalists rely on policy? How much longer can environmentalists chant and back their brakes and holding, protesting and holding placards? That is not going to get industries moving and talking and actually creating a change about this issue. I go back to the point that this is a capitalistic and this is an economic issue more than it is an environmental one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Please, Fernand, if you would like to just add on those comments to wrap up. So please. Yeah.
Okay, Flina said that the emissions in Ireland went up, right? They did go up, okay. Well, green technology is not, I don't know, is it trending? It's not trending either, is it? Green technology is not really trending either, okay? So when we say that these companies should be taxed, it's a realistic solution. It's a realistic way or a method of regulating pollution. So they've gone up, and what that shows is that this is not a perfect solution, but guess what it is? It's realistic, and it's characteristic of the capitalist society we inhabit today. So it's unfortunate that they've gone up, and I acknowledge that this is not a perfect solution, okay, to pollution, but what it does do is it curbs pollution. It doesn't eradicate pollution utterly, but it curbs it, okay? Because I don't know, if there's a better alternative, I would love it, because we all want to breathe clean air. We all want, we don't want landfill. We want a clean environment. That's the ultimate goal. So as she had stated, we are not pro-pollution. We are pro-paying for pollution, because trust me, it's not about to disappear. It's not about to go away. We are not going to wake up tomorrow and there will be no pollution. It's going to be there. That's Jeremiah. That's the truth, unfortunately. And there was also a point which was made about developing countries. She said that developing countries cannot hide behind the quest to develop and say, therefore, we are going to pollute. Then please, by all means, give me a country which by global standards we can look at and say they developed sustainably. If really, is there a country which has reached by global standards amazing living standards, economic prosperity, social cohesion, the works, and have done so sustainably without polluting or through green technology? If not, then let's come down to earth. And then the extreme weather events which are occurring now, they are real. I mean, there was Dineo. There was Dineo not so long ago, and I mean, there's a direct link between global warming and pollution as they had presented. But then again, we can speak about all these extreme weather events which are affecting us, and they affect everyone. Guess what? Even the industries which we are blaming for pollution are run by human beings who cannot be exempted from extreme weather events. So what we basically need is a better alternative, which both sides agree on, is green technology. But what we're saying is we have a solution which will gradually lead to greener technology. Because we're not going to wake up tomorrow and put away your cars in South Africa. I mean, the coal, right? We use coal for electricity. If you say we have to stop immediately, no, stop, don't reduce, no, stop, it's wrong, it's bad for the environment. Yes, it is bad, but what's the best realistic alternative? We can regulate it so that gradually we adopt greener technology. So we are not villains here by saying that companies should pay for pollution. What we're saying is they should compensate for the damage they cause, because we do acknowledge that they cause damage.
On that note, to wrap up, we're just getting a bit of, I'm just worried a bit about time. Pumulelo, I did see your hand up, but if maybe perhaps after we close the session, you could speak to the panelists. The only thing left for us to do, Grad, is ask. You've seen the motion set before us, right? I'm going to ask the class to vote for or against the motion. Do you believe that polluters should have the right to pay for the right to pollute?
Based on their arguments.
Based on the arguments that have been set before the class. I understand, but I'm just worried about time. Jeremiah, if you afterwards, okay, if you could just please. No. Yeah. We're gonna close up now. We're gonna ask the class to vote. Right. While the class is voting, we're gonna say goodbye to our viewers. Caesar, if you could just, we're gonna say goodbye to our viewers. You can vote online whether or not you are for or against the motion. We look forward to your responses, and please do. Right. Thanks.